So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on embedding research integrity into every research journey. And I hope you're all having a great day wherever you are in the world and that the sun is shining. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's webinar. Um, Today, I am super excited to be joined by Becca Richards, our head of product at Lean Library, and Tiago Barras, the co-founder of Signals. And I am Nicole Cunningham, and I'm the product marketing manager at Lean Library, and I will be the host for today's webinar. So I'll just be making sure everything runs smoothly and keeping an eye on the chat box for any questions coming in. So before we do get started, let me just run through a quick bit of housekeeping, just to make sure that we're all set up and ready to go. So in terms of your audio and visual settings, just please take a moment to check your settings, and if someone could just drop into the chat box or the Q&A box that you can hear me and see the slides, that would be great. And if you are having any audio or visual difficulties, we recommend leaving the webinar and then rejoining. And when you rejoin, Zoom will prompt you just to check your settings, and that should sort everything out. And please do feel free to connect with each other through the chat. We absolutely love hearing from you. So feel free to start by introducing yourself and letting us know where you're coming from today and what brings you here today in terms of research integrity in your institutions at the moment. And in terms of questions, ask us everything and anything by using either the Q&A box or the chat, or even just sending us a direct message, and we will answer either live during the presentation in the chat or at the end of the session. And if we don't get around to your questions today, rest assured I will follow up with you via email afterwards. And just a heads up that today's webinar is being recorded, and I will share it with you via email in the next day or two if you'd like to watch it back or share it with your colleagues. And then just quickly on the agenda, I ran through the welcome and housekeeping. Tiago is now going to run through an introduction to research integrity and what Signals actually does. And then Becca is going to kindly run us through our new integration, Lean Library and Signals at the end. And then there's plenty of time for questions at the end. So yeah, I think that is all from me. So I'm going to hand it over to Tiago. I'll just stop sharing my slides and you can share yours.
Thank you, Nicole. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, all good.
Yep, perfect. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Tiago. I'm one of the co-founders of Signals. And as Nicole was saying, I would like to start with a brief introduction to research integrity, so how we see it, that problem from the Signals perspective, and then giving you an overview on how Signals works and what we are doing in this context of research integrity. So I always like to start by putting things in perspective in terms of where the scholarly literature is right now and what are really the overall problem that we are trying to face, so trying to tackle. The scholarly literature is vast. It continues to grow very rapidly, so 25% increase over the last 5 years in the number of publications that have been published. Oh, and the quality ranges from the really groundbreaking studies that are really pushing the boundaries of our knowledge to a lot of noise that is there, is not fake, is not problematic, but also perhaps doesn't really advance our knowledge. But it can also go all the way to fraud, right? And so we are seeing an increasing number of retractions and research integrity cases that are becoming really a problem, and is one of the key motivations behind Signals. So with this picture in mind of an ever-growing publication records that has a wide range of quality and integrity. So what is it that we can tell about the context of research integrity in the scholarly records? So for some sort of a very, very brief overview of the history of research integrity, I picked 5 cases that were quite famous or notorious, ranging all the way from 1970 into more recent years. And the reason why I picked these 5 cases is because they actually convey a really interesting story in terms of the level of sophistication that is involved in research integrity and fraud in research, And what are the consequences of this research integrity compromised research that makes its way to the publication record? So the first example I'm giving you is back in the 70s, where a researcher at Sloan Kettering in New York had claimed to have been able to graft skins from animals that were not genetically related, which at the time was a very big breakthrough, if it were true. It soon turned out to be that those patches of dark fur in the mice were actually not really grafts, but they were just colored by the paint with a pen, as a very as an early example of how researchers, some researchers are faking research and trying to put those fake results into the scholarly records. And I would claim that is to be one of the most primitive and one of the most simplistic ways of conducting research misconduct. But then there are other types of research misconduct, or we could even talk about publication misconduct. And that's the case of the second example that I'm giving you with John Darcy, where there what was observed is that in a very short career, he has published over 100 articles. On average, I believe it was one article every couple of weeks that he was publishing. And beyond that, something that he was doing was to add co-authors that had nothing to do with the work that he was doing and nothing to do with the publication, but they were adding them to those fake publications that he was publishing to try to influence the journal editors to accept those publications. As something that is more recent and as an example of something that tells you how the research integrity issues can have a very serious societal consequences is a case of the work from Andrew Wakefield that made this link between the MMR vaccination and autism, which is, despite the fact that those studies have been retracted many, many years ago, they are still very prominently discussed and is still used to back some anti-vaccine stances in different countries. And then the other two examples I'm giving you are more classic examples of researchers manipulating the data in order to provide to support those wonderful results that they were trying to one day to get. And either that comes by just having data traces that are too good to be true, that have virtually no noise, which looks very suspicious, and other more sophisticated ways into fake research, like manipulating images. And this really tells you how the level of sophistication is increasing, is becoming increasingly harder to detect when research misconduct is happening. So with that sort of like context, historical context of research fraud, we really understand that research fraud isn't new. It's not something that's just developed in the last few years. No, this has always been true for a long, or at least for a very long time, it has been true. And the motivations behind it are also quite clear. And to be frank, they're also present today. Things from researchers being incentivized to publish a lot because of this publish or perish culture. They need those publications to advance their career. They have desired overall recognition, and so we can go beyond what is ethical or what is true in order to beautify results or making claims that are not really supported by the data in this context of competition between researchers for grants, and in some cases also trying to get financial incentives by being able to publish results that are, unfortunately, too good to be true. The more as we come closer to today, then what we see is that the scale of research integrity issues is increasing, at least as measured by the number of publications that are being retracted for research integrity reasons. Already in the early 2010s, there were large numbers of conference proceedings, for example, that were published then, but then later retracted. But then in this timeline, you can see that different publishers in different areas are starting to act on these problems and retracting a large number of publications due to research integrity concerns. So this is something that we hear about a lot, but it's also something that publishers are starting to do something about in terms of trying to correct the publication records. So where are we today? Again, as I said, it's very much present in all this discourse around research, that the research integrity is a real problem, and there's something that everyone needs to do their part, to solve that problem. In this slide, I'm giving some examples of high-profile cases, again, more recent, of how different publishers have acted onto correcting problematic papers that they had published. And also one very curious example that's related to this, in which a cat, Larry the cat, managed to amass hundreds of citations out of publications that he had presumably published as a cat in mathematics that just made their way to the publication records and were cited hundreds of times. And I think that was a good, really good example of how big of a problem this is and how we need to do something about it. A very significant group of people that are doing something about it are the research integrity sleuths. So these are typically researchers or former researchers who have taken their time and their expertise to go through the publication records and try to identify cases of frauds that they can then report to the community, to alert the community that these papers have a problem and nobody should be building their research on top of those publications. They are either using their expertise by having superhuman abilities to identify problems in figures, like in the case of Elizabeth Peak, or they have developed tools that assist this forensics of around investigating publications to pinpoint exactly what is the reason why they believe that these papers are problematic. It can be things like, for example, detecting tortured phrases that are signatures of generative AI being used to fabricate papers that have never been based on real research. So each of them have hundreds and thousands of publications that they have flagged as concerning. And I think this has really been a huge help for the community in general to tackle the problem and to know exactly, to provide companies like ours the information that we need to help our users to detect research integrity, publications with research integrity issues. Now, I talked about AI very briefly in the last slide, but I think we are really at a pivotal time in the sense that AI is getting more and more sophisticated. And one of those consequences is that it's becoming increasingly difficult for everyone to detect fake articles that using these sophisticated AI tools to fabricate manuscripts. That's not just in text. This is not just about going to ChatGPT or one of those other tools to just very quickly write a manuscript that is completely fake. It also goes into the data as well. So in this case, here on the left, you can see some examples of a comparison of images, pseudo micrographs, in which you have a real micrograph and something that was just generated by AI. And you can see how hard it may be to detect fake research like this. So in a way, I don't want to provide just a very negative view on how AI is used in research integrity, but because in reality, what we're seeing now is also that other parties using AI to detect fraud in research. So we are really at the point where we have some sort of arms race between AI being used for bad purposes by bad actors, but also being used by publishers, by research integrity sleuths, by researchers themselves, in terms of trying to analyze those publications and being able to identify when there is a problem with them. So the other thing I wanted to say is that tackling this problem is not something that just falls into one particular entity to solve. It's not just with the publishers to try to solve this problem. I think it seems clear that everyone needs to contribute to the solution of this problem. That means the publishers, of course, but also institutions in which fake research or bad actors may be acting from, and also authors themselves, right? So in terms of providing the data or providing the data to support their publications in a reliable way by being very clear about the methods that they use, all the things that we can do to bring more confidence into the publications that all the researchers will build their research from. I talked about how research integrity issues were first identified, what the evolution has been until now, where we are today. But something that is interesting to think about as well is where do we think that research integrity is going to be in 3 years' time or 5 years' time or in the near future? And we talked to some experts about this in terms of getting their view or what are the main concerns that they have in terms of how research integrity is going to be an issue in years to come. And the two things that were recurrent in their view, one was the increasing use of AI, as I said, both in terms of making those fake articles even harder and harder to detect, but also how other uh, contributors can use AI to evaluate research more thoroughly and to be able to more quickly identify compromised publications so that they can be filtered out of the works that researchers use for their own research. And the other thing that is concerning to some experts is this idea that research is a very networked, highly networked environment. In some cases, you can start seeing unfortunate situations when there's collateral reputation damage because someone that you work with has perhaps done something wrong in some other work that has nothing to do with you. That could be reflected in the reputation of the institution where people work from, that because it only takes a couple of bad actors in the institution to taint the reputation of the institution as a whole. Or it can also be in terms of just pure collaborations of groups of researchers that may have very solid work, but because they may have a collaboration with someone that is less that may have less integrity in their work, that will damage the reputation of good actors. And also, we need to be, as a community, be very careful in terms of how we make these ties between cases, individual cases, and generalizations around institutions or countries where these cases are coming from, so that we don't impose our own bias into this problem. What we thought we will be interesting to do now is also to get your view in terms of how do you see the research integrity? How do you think about research integrity? And I think Nicole has prepared a poll to get your opinions, which would be great to see where you think research integrity is at. Does that impact your own work? That is the first question. So if you could please um, tell us, within your role, do you feel affected by research integrity issues? Yes or no? I think this would be really interesting to give some context in terms of the audience and how, tools like Signals and integration with Lean Library can help you. We will collect the results and then we'll either get back to it or we can also update you once we have analyzed it. There's like a free text question coming as well. So we will analyze the data and then give you a summary of where the audience is in terms of their thinking of research integrity. So that was the question number one. Maybe Nicole, we can move on to question number two if people have a chance to
Yeah.
answer already. Oh, here's the result. Yeah, so yes, that's okay. So that's very aligned with what we see in many of the presentations and many of the people that we talked about. Research integrity is becoming a big issue for everyone that is involved in some ways with research, either because they're researchers themselves, because they're students, because they're librarians, because they work in institutions that are research heavy. It's becoming more and more the case that people are aware of these problems and that they feel the need for tools that helps them tackle these challenges. So the next question, if people have in front of them, is about how do you think that the problem is going to evolve? So if you think about the near or the medium term future, do you say, let's put a time frame here of 3 years? Do you think that research integrity issues will get worse? Will they stay about the same, or do you believe that things will improve? We are very curious to see your view on this. Giving everyone a minute to answer. you looking, Nicole?
Yeah, I'll share the results now. There.
Oh, wow. All right. So the vast majority of you believe that things will get worse with time. Um, I hope I was not the culprit of bringing a pessimistic view on that, on how research integrity is going to evolve in the next 3 years. But it's really interesting to see where your opinion. Again, I actually have to confess that it's not the first time that we see this. Pretty much every time we present to around research activity and signals, that's kind of the view that we're seeing, and I think that really speaks to the necessity of being very equipped and have more information about potential problematic papers, so that we feel more confident that we are detecting them and that we are not using them in research and education. Great. And then we have a final question, which is a bit more open-ended, and we're really just trying to explore more about your views on research integrity. Is the free text answer. So we really encourage you to tell us what you worry the most about research integrity in the next 3 years. So since the vast majority of you thought that things are getting worse, we really would love to understand why you think that is. So because this is a sort of like an open question, I think we will just collect the results. We'll do some analysis and then give back to you as a summary in an email. But we're really, really curious to know why do you think, or what worries you in the next 3 years? Great. Okay, so with this, and feel free to give us your answer as things go, and for the whole presentation. So I would like now to switch gears now to tell you a bit about signals. And so what are we doing in this research integrity context, and how we are helping everyone that is involved in research to tackle these research integrity problems. So the first thing that I want to say is that what are really currently the standards for assessing research are just not going to help us to solve this problem. Things like journal brands and researcher reputations were historically being used to as reliable proxies for trust. But I think this is becoming more and more less effective. So the number of publications in journals are growing. There's a much more globalized landscape of research now, and so I think it's becoming less and less advisable to just use journal brands as the proxy for quality. The second thing that are or in this list that is commonly used is citation-based metrics, H indexes, citation counts, impact factors, things like that. There's a few problems with them. One is that they are lagging indicators, so it takes quite a long time for citations to be accumulated, so they are not really very responsive to the assessment, to assess research, really. And then also, they're not really precise, right? So I think there's like very crude metrics in a way. They're trying to approximate quality or impact of research, but we all know about the limitations. And really in the research integrity context, they start really lacking because, as we said, Larry the cat accumulated hundreds of citations with papers that were completely faked, right? So I think this is a good example of why we can't really just rely on citations. And the other thing is that there are all alternative metrics, alt metrics, that are often looking into the attention that pieces of research gather. They are really just focusing on measuring attention. It's not really about quality. It's not really trust. It's not about attention. And I think there are some, of course, perhaps there's some links between how much attention things get and how the quality that they have. But again, we think that is quite a poor proxy of that. So what are we doing? So signals, on the other hand, what we're trying to do is to deliver these dynamic and transparent evaluations of every of research. That could be a publication, which is the typical use case for you as users of Lean Library. But it can also be used for manuscripts when we are working with publishers to try to stop this fake research from even being published in the first place. So I'm giving you here screenshots of what a evaluation or a report from Signals could look like for a particular research output. And so I'm just going to point you to a few things that are really critical for how Signals evaluates research. And the first thing that that one says, it was already in the title, is just being dynamic and transparent. And so the reason why they are dynamic is because data changes very quickly in the scholarly records. We have new citations, we have retractions happening on the background, we have an increasing number of publications that are connected. And so every time there's new information, the goal for Signals is to always be adding all of that new data into the evaluation. So that what you see on Signals is the most current, up-to-date evaluation that we can provide for a given publication. And the other aspect that I mentioned in the title is transparency. And that's really important for us. So we are not developing a black box that returns an evaluation that we cannot justify. So what we're doing instead is to analyze publications. And then if we find some evidence of something that could be suspicious or could be out of normal, that could indicate a potential problems, we will want to surface that evidence to you. So the way that we do this then is to provide an overall evaluation for a publication, which can be one of looks good, a green sign, which is fortunately the vast majority of publications they are look good because we couldn't find any issues with them. Caution, there may be something that is unusual, but not necessarily clear evidence of misconduct or research integrity issues. And then we have alerts, which is really when we find something that seems very problematic and you should be aware of. And so then we provide, as I said, all the evidence that we could find to justify that evaluation. That could be signals that we found around the authors, where they're coming from, but also the content as well, and other things such as what we know about the references in that publication, and specifically, for example, about self-citations. Are the authors citing or self-citing publications that we already know that have research integrity problems, for example, because they were retracted? And so we are trying to create these reports that we are very transparent in terms of providing all of that evidence that you need to know to understand how much you can trust, and then provide this overall evaluation that will help you quickly identify what to trust and what not to trust. To do this, we use basically three pillars on our evaluations. One is this network research data that I was talking about. So this is hundreds of millions of publications that have been published that we have analyzed, also manuscripts that we have access to from publishers, the authors from those research outputs, putting all of this in the network of data that we can analyze and to see exactly the connections between all of the publications. The second thing we use is expert knowledge. I told you about the research integrity sleuths that have provided these insights to the community. So we're really trying to leverage that information to inform our evaluations. And beyond that, we're also working with publishers to use the knowledge that they have and also their research integrity teams to share their insights with us so that we, again, can add that information to our evaluations. And last but not least, of course, is AI that we use, whether that is in terms of helping us extract information that we need from these publications, about making connections between different publications, or just helping the AI as well interrogate the manuscript and help our users to understand if there's any issues with those research outputs. So overall, we're using these three components to provide these deep evaluations of every article and manuscripts that we come across. One thing that I want to quickly note is that we're really leveraging the fact that we can create this graph, this network of data from the scholarly records to amplify the signals that we can identify. An example here, look, for example, on the left, we have this network of papers that are connected because they share authors or because they share citations between them. They cite each other. They are from the same institution. And we can have a starting point when everything looks good, right? But here comes one of those research integrity sleuths that has actually found a problem with one of these publications. And the beauty of the signals analysis and having this network data is that that new piece of information can automatically be broadcast in the graph, so that then we can start making connections between that publication that we now know has a problem and everything that's related to this. Then we can update the evaluation that we have for all of these linked publications because we have one new piece of information, which again relates to what I said about being dynamic, and so that we are permanently evolving and updating our evaluations. What is critical then is to put these evaluations exactly in the research workflows that need them. So this is the key reason why we are here with our partnership with Lean Library that we are super excited about, because really the our evaluation is only as good for as long as they are right where people need them. And so we're really super excited to have this integration, and we'll quickly provide you what Signals thinks about these publications as you come across them, which I think will be super useful. And I know that Becca will give you a demo of how it looks. Beyond that, I think it's really great to see how researchers are using them, using the Signals evaluations in a variety of ways. For example, when they're trying to write reviews or doing their own research before they use a particular publication, run it through Signals and understand, whether they can trust it or not. And there's also, of course, can be aggregated at the author level. In this case, for example, you can have, if you are an institution that is evaluating researchers, you can have very quickly a glimpse of whether each of those researchers has clean records or if there's anything that's compromising their profile from a research integrity perspective. So I'll just end very quickly to say that Signals is here to support the whole research community, which all of you will be part of course. And from publishers to individual researchers, Signals is here to provide our evaluations and to help you navigate the research integrity problems. Now, I think I hand it over to Becca now.
Awesome. Thanks, Tiago. Nicole, I think you're going to share our slides, aren't you?
I will do.
Lovely. Thank you.
Can you see that?
I can indeed. Thanks so much. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Tiago, for that really insightful introduction to Signals and also like the history of research integrity, how the field has progressed. If we could go on to the next slide, Nicole, before I sort of go into what we've built around this integration, I want to talk about why it matters and also why Lean Library as a sort of product exists, what our mission is, what we aim to do. So our mission is to amplify the power of the academic library with technologies that support a patron-centric approach. So taking library services and content to exactly where patrons are online. And I think that phrase patron-centric is really key here, which is something that Tiago also alluded to. So users of your library will have built their own pre-existing digital behaviors. They may not always use the knowledge sources that you expect them to or you would like them to. So we want to help you meet your users where they already work, whether that's in Google Scholar, if they do most of their content discovery on PubMed, if they're going to Wikipedia to get an overview of a subject and to try and find, source material on that subject, wherever they might be sort of starting their research journey, doing searches, we want to be there, making sure that your library can reach your users where they are. And that is the foundation of everything we build. So this research integrity sort of feature, this integration of Signals, is the perfect example of this mission in action. We're not asking researchers to go and hunt down integrity assessments on separate platforms. We're not asking students to go sort of like looking for this when they might not know that this is something that they need to be engaging with or start to engage with. We're bringing those signals directly into their existing workflow. So if we could go on to the next slide, please, Nicole, I want to talk a bit about the problem as we see it, the problem that we're trying to solve. So the research integrity landscape has, as Tiago mentioned, has become increasingly complex, from paper mills creating fake research, editorial practices, not sort of rigorous enough peer review, to the recent concerns around generative AI and plagiarism. It's become sort of critically important to help students and researchers evaluate source quality. And when editorial notices or retraction updates exist, we want to help those users find that information. We want to help them know about it. And students as well specifically will, depending on whether they go on to sort of further study, will need to start building research skills to be able to assess content critically. So we want to be able to build something that can also act as a pedagogical tool. So the challenge, as we see it, when students or researchers are discovering content, scanning Google Scholar results, browsing PubMed, looking at Wikipedia citations, they don't have easy and visual ways to evaluate the quality and reliability of what they're looking at. So that information obviously exists, but often, for example, on publisher sites, the UI can be different and vary depending on the publisher site in question. The information can be scattered across different platforms in databases. And as a student, you might not know where to look to find this information. So for us, the opportunity seemed really clear. We want to signal to students and researchers the quality considerations of article content found on common research entry points while they're on the open web, while they're doing their research and looking for materials to use in their studies or their research. So how do we make this assessment as visible and accessible as we would like? I want to sort of start by talking about our approach and our role in this area. And I think it's really important for me to start by saying that Lean Library as a product does not assess research integrity. We don't do that ourselves. We're not in the business of sort of passing that judgment. We are sort of providing this information, surfacing this information through open integrations with established companies who specialize in this work, like Signals, whose methodology Tiago has already walked us through. So we are here as a discovery tool to make your users' lives easier when they're conducting their research away from your library's environment. And I think it's really crucial to mention that libraries maintain complete control over this functionality. So if you are a Lean Library user or you're interested, if you're a Lean Library customer or interested in being one, you can very much decide which integrations to enable for your users and what to show them. So if you want to use Signals, you can turn it on. If you don't, you can turn it off within our browser extension. If you want to use one of our pre-existing integrations, we also integrate with a company called Cite AI for citation analysis. You can enable that. You can enable both. It's completely up to your library. And the way that we sort of package the information to show to your users means that we can continue partnering with other companies in this space and continue to do so as the field evolves. So we feel like we're building an ecosystem approach for open collaboration to give your library choice around what you do and don't show to your users. So if we go on to the next slide, Nicole, I'm just going to talk about how this works and what it looks like for end users, bearing in mind that I will be doing a demo very shortly. So we've added visual research integrity badges that appear directly on search results and article pages across the platforms that students and researchers are already using, such as Google Scholar, PubMed, Wikipedia references, and also on publisher sites. So there are 3 possible badge states based on the Signals assessment, as Tiago was saying. There's the alert for sort of more serious issues like retractions, a cautionary notice for things to bear in mind like self-citation rates, editorial notices, and the looks good state for when Signals has assessed the article and found no issues. And they will also provide the positive signals such as author ORCIDs, that sort of thing. And clicking any badge opens a detailed modal to show a full assessment through which signals are able to surface the rich data around the retractions, retraction history, self-citations. And yeah, we want this to be educational and helpful, not just a warning system. So I think the really great way of bringing this into Lean Library is that we can teach and aid research literacy, not just flag problems and discourage users from interacting with the content. As Tiago was mentioning, retractions are part of sort of correcting the scholarly record. It's part of the research process. So we want users to be able to engage and understand with this. Great. So if we could go on to the next slide, please, Nicole. I'm just going to talk really briefly about the benefits for libraries. So these are just, I'm going to whiz through these because I'm wary of time. I want to make sure there's enough time for questions, and I've still got a demo coming up, which is where we'll get into the meat of how this works. But to whiz through, the benefits as we see them for the library will be to support research literacy development, to help your users develop these critical research skills, but also to reduce the reference desk burden. So users who are able to sort of self-critique this content may not need to come to you as often if they have access to this information at point of need. And then you also have full flexibility to choose, as I said, which integrations to utilize. It's completely up to your library. And then if we go on to the next slide, I'll just quickly talk about the benefits for students. Again, I'm kind of recapping what I've already said. But for students and researchers, well, for the first one, for students specifically, they can learn research integrity concepts in context. We're aware that the step up from that sort of undergraduate level to a master's and postgraduate level is or can be a steep one. We want to make that process, the entire sort of research career of a student, as seamless as possible. It allows users to make source decisions faster, but not even just faster, but at a deeper level. So as I said, with this tool, the idea is not to warn users against using content that has been flagged as a warning, for example. We want them to engage with the content and really understand the reasoning behind it. And then also to discover these quality indicators. So both discover them and also learn in context what this terminology means on the student level. Okay, I think if we go on to the next slide, Nicole, we can go for the demo. I've prepped a quick video of this tool in action. So if you press play for me, Nicole, I'll just walk you through it as the video plays. So for the demo, I'm going to start on Google Scholar and run a search query for stem cell therapy. You can see now that for the relevant search results, an inline toolbar has appeared underneath individual results with the library's logo and a call to action button to investigate this article further. And this button is marked as looks good because the signals data has found no questionable or cautionary citation data behind this article. So when I click on this button, the user will see a modal that pops up on the right-hand side of the screen. You will see that this modal is branded to your library and you are in full control of what is shown here. So as it sort of comes across as if, you know, this is very much coming from your library. You are providing these tools to your users. And the user from here can gain further information on the signals and site information. I want to show what this looks like for a retracted article, for an article that does have those warning signals as well. So within our newly designed floating action button, which you can see me pointing to here, we have the Research Integrity tab. This is how this feature looks like on a single article page. So in this case on Science Direct. If I click on this button, you will see that the research integrity modal appears. Has the video paused for you, Nicole, or is it? Oh, no, it's back.
It's back.
Yeah. So you can see here that we've pulled through this rich citation data, not just on the retraction itself to mark it as a retracted article, but also the deeper signals citation data around self-citations, retracted self-citations, and also those expert contributions that Tiago was mentioning. And we want users to be able to find more information. So the user can click View Full Report and go to one of those pages that Tiago walked us through, which gives a lot more detailed information on the signals data. So all of these tooltips as well that show sort of what this assessment means and why it's been marked as such, information on the authors, on the citation history and data. I want to show what this will look like on Wikipedia as well. So you can see, found a page on stem cell therapy. I'm going to scroll down to the references so we can see what this looks like. Looks very much the same. And in this instant as well, you can see the looks good badge, which shows the research integrity modal. We also have a get PDF button here, which means that the user can access the PDF instantly without having to go into the article. So if they see it looks good, it's nice for them to be able to grab the PDF straight away. Obviously, if the badge shows us alert or caution, it's good to show that next to the PDF because it might, make sure that they interrogate the source material before they go and grab the PDF. So we give them that information there. So that is actually it for the demo. And also for me, so I think we're actually coming up almost perfectly on time for 10 minutes of questions. If we want to go, I'll just hand back to you, Nicole, to moderate the questions.
Yes, no problem. So we'd one in the Q&A box for Tiago. Which publishers' websites have already integrated signals?
That's a good question. So our strategy has been so far to have integrations not directly with publishers' websites, but with the tools that researchers use to access literature. So Lean Library would be, of course, the prime example of this. So people tend to consume literature based on these tools. And so Lean Library is an example. Other tools like Nancy that I mentioned in my presentation, essentially having these integrations with those tools rather than on the websites directly of the publishers. The work we do with publishers is a lot focused on the manuscript front as well, so that rather than flagging for now our assessment of the publications that are already out there to help them prevent more of those problematic papers from being published in the first place. But the short answer is we do these integrations through third-party tools such as Lean Library.
Perfect. And then another question, I think this will be more for you, Becca. Can the button messages be customized significant conceptually leap from not obviously questionable to good, the latter implying quality? I think it's just if the buttons can be customized.
Yeah. So this is something that we were considering for first launch, but have put on hold, largely because at the moment we are mirroring the language used by Signals as they are our chief integration partner, and this is where that data assessment is coming from. We do eventually want to be able to allow our library users to customize the language of the buttons. And this is something that we do, to be honest, across our entire product. Our entire product is heavily customizable because we're very aware that you will sort of call different things, in a certain, like refer to things in a certain way to your users. So you want to kind of mirror that in the product. So I imagine that will come not long after this initial launch. That's something that we'd earmark as a kind of one of the next steps.
And if I can just add very quickly to that, as Becca said, the language is being used right now in Lean libraries comes straight from Signals. That's sort of like the labels that we've been using so far. We would love to get your feedback in terms of what different language you think would be appropriate. I understand the remark that there is some leap between saying we didn't find any evidence for research misconduct to looking good, which may imply maybe something to do about the quality itself. We would love to get your feedback. So I think the question came from Alistair. So absolutely, very keen to have the conversation. And if there are alternative things that we think we can use, we'd love to hear.
And Becca, I think this is on the one-click to PDF, but how does
Yeah.
going directly to PDF impact use counts for the articles/journals?
Yeah, I mean, the rationale behind one click to PDF is that we know users want the PDF. And the quicker we can get them there, the happier they are. They're often sort of, grabbing the PDF, saving it straight to their reference library. The quicker they can do that, the better their outcome. What Lean Library does also do, and we present it to our users at the same time as the downloading PDF in other formats, is to take the user to the full text, whether that is the HTML or wherever the library has that piece of content in license. So if the user would rather find the full text on the publisher site directly, maybe to explore other relevant content that the publisher might promote, or to find accessible versions of that article, such as like the EPUB or the HTML, whatever it might be. We do also take the users to those locations, which we've seen shows like quite a marked increase in the usage of those resources within our partner libraries. So they'll see a big jump in the usage of the subscriptions that they have with those publishers.
Yeah, great. And Tiago, for someone who may not be a Lean Library customer, how do they obtain signals for use within their library?
Good question. So there's a number of ways in which we can support libraries. It goes from the simplest thing we can do, which is to help anyone with who creates a free account on the Signals website, can start checking individual DOIs for their Signals evaluation. So that's the most basic way in which we can start working together. And there are other ways we can evolve this. So whether, for example, if you as an institution are looking to see what's the Signals evaluation for a collection of articles, for example, if you are a researcher or an educator that would like to have an overview of evaluations over a bigger number of publications, we can support you with, for example, with a report, or we're giving you access to a dashboard and with the evaluations for any articles that you want to look at. So as I said, it can go from individual publication to collections, and it can also be in aggregations, such as researchers. Like if your institution is interested to looking at the profiles of researchers in your institution, or collaborators of people that are working with researchers at your institution, we can do that. We had some projects that we've done with different libraries around evaluating the research output from their own institutions. So we can create those bespoke reports, or as I said, also giving you access to a dashboard on our website that you can configure to have an overview of publications. So easiest thing, if you want to progress this, email us at tiago@research-signals.com. I'll be more than happy to tell you more about it.
Fantastic. And a question in on the Q&A box, Becca, for you. Will the signals tag appear within Lean Library Workspace? And for anyone who doesn't know, Lean Library Workspace is our reference manager side of Lean Library.
It won't at the moment, and I know I've said this already, but that is again another next step for us. We see so much potential for this functionality and the integrations with Signals and also our other sort of citation assessment partners in Lean Library Workspace. So watch this space.
And a question in here from Donna on the question about impact. How will it fit with our library's database usage stats, which are often vital for justifying resource expenditures? Will the usage show in our stats, or do librarians need to go to Lean Library and gather the stats there?
On the Lean Library side, you would need to go to the Lean Library dashboard to gather those stats, yes. So in the usual way you would, you go into your dashboard and we'll provide the data on the number of views, number of clicks, that sort of thing. So the sort of usage engagement data, we'll show that.
Great. Any other questions? There's one directly in here. Is Signals included in the Lean Library subscription, or will they have to pay more?
It's included in our core package. So if you're a Lean Library subscriber, then you'll see the Signals integration there for you to use if you wish. As I said, you'll just have to go into your admin dashboard and turn it on and off, depending on whether you want to use it. So, yeah.
Thanks. And just one last question. I think we'll end on this, but when will this be live?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually forgot to say that. Very important piece of information. We are currently just doing our last reviews. So we're doing design review to make sure everything looks as expected, and hooking up to the live Signals data. So this will be coming in the coming weeks, next couple of weeks.
Just going to drop the link to Signals. So that's both links in there to Lean Library and Signals. And I think we will end it there. But if any of you have any questions after this, please just send them over to us and we'll be happy to get back to you. But also thanks so much everyone for joining today, and especially to Becca and Tiago. That was brilliant. So thanks very much. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you all again very soon.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining.